The studio audience roared as the host announced, "Our first guest is a legendary stand-up comedian and an Academy Award-winning actor. Hold on to your seats and welcome the one, the only, the hilarious Robin Williams." A blur of motion followed, words tumbled faster than air, jokes collided with philosophy, and in the space of a heartbeat an ordinary room turned electric. That was Robin Williams, human lightning trapped inside a body that could barely contain it. For decades he was laughter incarnate, the spontaneous genius who could mimic, mock, and move an audience to tears in the same breath. But beneath that brilliance lay a truth few ever saw. The story the world remembers is simple, a beloved actor gone too soon. Yet the real story is stranger, deeper, and far more human. In his final years, Robin left behind something extraordinary, not a scandal or confession, but a quiet decision that forced Hollywood itself to stop and reconsider what it means to own a person's image after death. Before we reach that revelation, we must return to the beginning, to the force of nature that first turned a shy young man from San Francisco into one of the most beloved entertainers on earth. The legend of laughter. Robin Williams on a stage was pure chaos, but the kind that healed rather than hurt. He seemed to channel an invisible current. No script could hold him, no director could truly direct him. Watching him perform was like witnessing a human mind thinking out loud at the speed of light. He could shift from Shakespearean verse to street slang without taking a breath. His breakthrough came with Mork and Mindy in 1978. An alien who learns to be human became the perfect metaphor for a comedian who never quite felt like he belonged to this world. Every episode turned absurdity into empathy. The alien's confusion about Earth's customs made audiences laugh, but it also made them think. From there he built a body of work that seemed to span every emotion a person could feel. Good Morning, Vietnam gave him the chance to pour rebellion into a microphone and turn laughter into resistance. Dead Poets Society taught a generation to seize the day. Doubtfire proved that love could wear a disguise. Good Will Hunting reminded the world that silence could be as powerful as a punchline. Through the 1980s, 1990s, and early 2000s, he became more than an actor. He became comfort itself. When he appeared on screen, people felt safe. He was the friend who made sadness bearable, the stranger who somehow understood. Yet the same boundless energy that powered his genius also drained him. The laughter he gave so freely often left him empty. The man behind the smile. By the height of his fame, Robin Williams was everywhere. He had conquered television, film, and animation. His voice as the genie in Aladdin was so explosive that Disney's animators had to invent new techniques just to keep up. In Mrs. Doubtfire, he transformed slapstick into tenderness, and the film went on to earn nearly $500 million worldwide. His role in Good Will Hunting finally earned him an Academy Award and cemented him as an actor who could do anything. Yet the applause hid a growing unease. Off camera, Robin was rarely still. Friends said he was always performing, even at home, as if afraid that silence might swallow him. He once joked, "You're only as good as your last laugh." It sounded lighthearted, but beneath it was fear. Fear of fading, of no longer being needed, of losing the spark that made him who he was. Behind the curtain there were struggles, addiction, exhaustion, insomnia, and long nights spent pacing rather than sleeping. He was endlessly generous with others but often harsh with himself. The man who helped millions cope with loneliness sometimes felt completely alone. By 2013, subtle changes began to worry those closest to him. While filming The Crazy Ones and Night at the Museum 3, his timing wavered. Lines slipped. The improvisational rhythm that once seemed effortless began to falter. He brushed it off as fatigue, but inside he felt something darker. His hands trembled, his focus blurred. Doctors spoke of depression and stress. Robin suspected it was something else. After his death, the truth emerged: Lewy body dementia, a degenerative brain disorder that mimics Parkinson's and depression while eroding memory and identity. It twists reality, causing paranoia and hallucinations while leaving the victim painfully aware of the decline. For a performer whose art relied on lightning, quick thought, it was the cruelest disease imaginable. Even as his mind betrayed him, he began to reflect on what he could still control. Legacy became his obsession. He started to question the future he saw forming around him. A world where technology could resurrect voices and faces, where studios could bring back the dead for one more show. He feared that someday his likeness might be revived without consent, turned into a digital puppet wearing his smile. For a man who believed in authenticity, that thought was unbearable. Quietly, he began making plans, small, deliberate, and final. By 2013, Robin Williams seemed poised for another comeback. He had projects lined up, a new television show, and an audience still hungry for his magic. To the world, the beloved comedian was back. He still cracked jokes, still shook hands, still glowed under the lights. But off camera, the signs of struggle were unmistakable. Something was changing, not dramatically, not overnight, but quietly, steadily, like a dimmer switch lowering the brightness of a room. Friends noticed he'd pause mid-sentence, forget names, lose rhythm in conversation. He'd laugh it off, blaming age or exhaustion, but deep down he felt something far more sinister stirring. He described it as, "my brain not feeling like my own." Those closest to him later said it was as if he were trying to run with invisible weights tied around his thoughts. During the filming of The Crazy Ones, a show that mirrored his own restless creativity, the crew saw a man still brilliant, but somehow fragile. Between takes, he'd look into the distance, searching for words that used to come instantly. For someone who had built a career on spontaneous brilliance, that loss was devastating. Robin Williams wasn't just forgetting lines, he was losing fragments of himself. He had been misdiagnosed with depression and Parkinson's disease. Both were plausible, but neither was correct. The truth was that a rare, devastating disorder had already begun its silent takeover, Lewy body dementia, the same disease that would later be called one of the most painful misdiagnoses in medical history. What makes Lewy body dementia so cruel isn't just what it takes away, it's what it leaves behind. It keeps the sufferer aware. They can watch their mind unravel, fully conscious of what's slipping away. For a man whose genius came from quicksilver thoughts and constant movement, it was like watching the lights of his imagination go out one by one. A private struggle he told a few friends that he felt trapped inside his own body, that his reflection no longer matched the man he remembered. There were nights he couldn't sleep, days when he'd lose words, and moments when anxiety tightened around him like a vice. He was frightened but also determined to keep working, perhaps because working was the only way he knew to fight back. Even then, his kindness never disappeared. He went out of his way to greet fans, comforted strangers, sent handwritten notes to friends who were struggling. To his wife Susan, he was still gentle, funny, and loving, just quieter, more contemplative. He would ride his bike through their neighborhood, read quietly by the window, and talk about life as though he were already preparing to say goodbye. That sense of preparation wasn't paranoia, it was clarity. Robin Williams had always been able to sense the pulse of humanity before anyone else. Now, facing his own mortality, he began to think about what would remain after him, and what would happen to that spark once he was gone. The question of control the entertainment industry he had helped shape was changing rapidly. Actors who had died decades ago were appearing in commercials. Performers were being digitally recreated for sequels they never lived to see. The idea of immortality, once spiritual, had become technological. Robin saw it coming and it unsettled him. His characters had always been about truth, real laughter, real tears, real moments that could never be replicated. He feared a future where that authenticity would be lost, where a studio could resurrect him through algorithms and pixels, a ghost program to keep smiling. Those close to him later recalled that he began asking unsettling questions. Who owns your face when you're gone? Who owns your voice? He talked about legacy not as fame but as responsibility. How an artist's essence shouldn't be manipulated once their story had ended. He was a man who had spent decades giving his entire soul to the public. Now, he wanted one thing back: control. The final days. In the summer of 2014, the disease accelerated. Tremors, confusion, and panic attacks began to overwhelm him. He tried new medications, saw specialists, and underwent tests, but no one could give him a clear answer. His wife later said he was terrified that he was losing his sanity. Still, he fought to maintain normalcy. He spent quiet evenings with Susan, took long bike rides, and even planned upcoming projects. To outsiders, he looked calm, perhaps too calm. On August 10, he and Susan spent the day together. He seemed relaxed, even optimistic. She kissed him goodnight, unaware that he had already made his final decision. The next morning, August 11th, 2014, Robin Williams was found dead at his home in Tiburon, California. He was 63 years old. The world stopped. News bulletins, headlines, and tributes poured in from every corner of the globe. Fans gathered outside his home at the Mrs. Doubtfire House in San Francisco, at the Goodwill Hunting Bench in Boston, leaving flowers, letters, and sketches of the genie. Disney employees taped a note to their studio gate: "Genie, you're free now." Even the White House issued a statement. President Obama called him one of a kind, a man who made us laugh, made us cry, and gave his immeasurable talent freely to those who needed it most. For weeks, the world mourned, but behind the grief was confusion. Why? Why would a man so loved, so full of compassion, take his own life? The toxicology reports found no illegal substances, only prescribed medications. He wasn't intoxicated, he wasn't reckless. He was ill, profoundly and invisibly ill. His wife sought answers. The autopsy revealed the truth that eluded doctors in life. His brain was riddled with Lewy bodies, the abnormal protein clusters that disrupt every function of the mind. The report described it as one of the worst cases the specialists had ever seen. For Robin, the disease had been like a thief that stole his essence piece by piece until he could no longer bear it. Yet even in that darkness, he had found a way to leave one last message, not in a note, but in a document. The last request in the months after his death. While lawyers sorted through Robin's estate, one clause in his trust caught everyone's attention. It wasn't a film contract or a forgotten screenplay. It was a single paragraph buried within the Windfall Foundation, the nonprofit trust he had established for his family and charities. It reads simply, "No person shall use the name, voice, signature, photograph, or likeness of Robin Williams for any purpose, including advertising, merchandising, or digital simulation, for a period of 25 years following his death." That clause became known quietly within the legal and entertainment world as the Robin Williams restriction. In plain terms, it meant no one could resurrect him, no holograms, no commercials, no digital recreations, no AI-generated performances, until the year 2039. For Hollywood, this was a shock. By then, the industry had begun experimenting with digital doubles. Paul Walker's CGI scenes in Furious 7, Tupac's hologram performance at Coachella, Peter Cushing's face digitally recreated for Star Wars Rogue One. Death was no longer a boundary. Technology had made immortality profitable, but Robin Williams had drawn a line. His clause was legal, airtight, and absolute. Reporters later confirmed its authenticity through court filings and estate lawyers. Once the news surfaced, spread briefly across industry publications, and then disappeared. There were no major headlines, no debates, no public statements from studios. The silence was almost eerie. Behind the scenes, executives quietly reviewed contracts. Disney, Universal, and Warner Bros. Instructed their legal teams to ensure compliance. Marketing divisions shelved anniversary ads that featured his voice or image. Plans for digital tributes were quietly scrapped. No one dared to test the restriction. One studio executive admitted off record, no one wanted to be the first to ignore Robin Williams' ghost. Hollywood, a machine built on spectacle, had suddenly found something it refused to touch. The meaning behind the rule for Robin's family and close friends, the clause wasn't surprising. He had always been deeply protective of his authenticity. He believed that an artist's work should live on its own, unaltered by technology or greed. He had watched the industry recycle its legends, turning performers into commodities long after they were gone. He didn't want to be another hologram smiling to sell nostalgia. He wanted his humanity, imperfect, fleeting, real, to remain untouched. In that sense, his final wish wasn't about defiance, it was about dignity. Even as his health failed, he found a way to take back control from an industry that often takes control of everything. He couldn't stop his body from betraying him, but he could stop the world from rewriting him, and that's exactly what he did. To this day, nearly a decade later, the Robin Williams restriction still stands. His likeness has not been used, his voice has not been cloned, and no studio has attempted to digitally revive him. In an era where almost every celebrity becomes a brand, Robin Williams remains untouchably human. When news of Robin Williams' final request quietly reached the legal and entertainment communities, it created an unease that few wanted to discuss. The restriction was only a few sentences long, but it cut through Hollywood like a blade. No one had ever seen anything like it. For an actor of Robin's stature to legally forbid any use of his likeness for 25 years was unheard of. It wasn't just about his image, it was about the idea of ownership itself. Who owns a person once they've gone? To the public, it sounded like a small legal curiosity. To studios, it was a revolution. Robin had done what almost no other celebrity had dared. He had claimed the right to remain human even in death. Executives understood what it meant immediately. Technology was evolving faster than morality. Actors were being recreated through software, voices cloned from audio archives, faces reconstructed from scans. With a few lines of code, the dead could be brought back to life, to sell products, to headline sequels, to keep the money flowing. But Robin Williams, the man who once made the world laugh until it cried, refused to be turned into a simulation. He had seen the danger long before most people could imagine it, and that foresight reshaped everything. Lawyers across Los Angeles began quietly referencing the Robin Rule. It became a model for how artists could protect themselves against digital resurrection. Unions later cited it while negotiating new contracts for performers. His clause became a silent precedent, a wall between art and exploitation. Behind closed doors, executives grumbled but complied. One studio insider told a journalist years later, "Everyone understood the symbolism. It wasn't about control, it was about respect." Nobody wanted to be the studio that ignored Robin Williams. Publicly, Hollywood said nothing. No press releases, no debates, no open acknowledgement. The silence wasn't disrespect. It was reverence mixed with fear. For once, the industry famous for recycling everything had met a story it couldn't rewrite. And so, Robin Williams remained untouched. His characters, the genie Mrs. Doubtfire, John Keating, Sean Maguire, stayed frozen in their original forms. His voice remained his own. His image stayed in the past where it belonged. For audiences, that absence is strangely comforting. Unlike other stars digitally revived for new projects, Robin exists only where he truly lived in the films and moments he created himself. He is finite, and that, in a world obsessed with endlessness, feels almost sacred. Why he said no. Robin's restriction was never an act of rebellion. It was an act of love, for his art, for truth, for humanity. He knew how fragile authenticity had become. In interviews near the end of his life, he often talked about how fast the world was changing, how attention was replacing emotion. He worried that real connection, the kind built through laughter and empathy, was being replaced by pixels and noise. He wasn't against progress. He was against losing the soul inside it. Robin believed that comedy, at its best, was an act of compassion. It was about seeing people, really seeing them and saying, "You're not alone." He had lived his entire life giving that to others. His final wish was to make sure no machine could mimic that voice without meaning it. That's why his restriction felt poetic. It wasn't a demand for silence. It was a request for integrity. It was his way of telling the world, "If you want to remember me, remember what was real." A rule that changed Hollywood after the clause became public. Other actors began adding similar protections to their estates. The Screen Actors Guild later referenced posthumous rights as an area of concern, especially as AI technology began to evolve. Robin's decision, quiet, personal, and almost hidden, had triggered a conversation about digital ethics years before it became mainstream. In 2023 and 2024, debates over AI-generated voices and likenesses reignited during industry strikes. Performers worried that studios could use artificial intelligence to replicate them indefinitely. Writers feared that creativity itself could be automated. When those debates reached their peak, one name was mentioned repeatedly: Robin Williams. People realized he had already drawn the line a decade earlier. He had foreseen the moral dilemma that was now consuming the industry. Without knowing it, his final request had become a blueprint for artistic autonomy. Hollywood eventually gave it a name, the Robin Williams Clause. It became shorthand for the right to die as a human being, not as a digital property. The power of a finite life. There is something deeply moving about the fact that Robin Williams, a man who seemed infinite in imagination, chose to remain finite in memory. His restriction isn't about limitation, it's about definition. Because when life ends, meaning begins. By refusing to let technology reproduce him, he ensured that his body of work would stand complete. A finished painting, not an endless remix. His fans would never wonder which version of him was real. Every laugh, every tear, every improvisation would remain untouched by machines. That's why even now, when people revisit his movies, they still feel alive. Because they are alive, not through algorithms, but through authenticity. A legacy of humanity today. Robin Williams' influence runs deeper than ever. His performances continue to comfort people in dark moments. His words are quoted in classrooms. His voice echoes through generations that never met him. But his greatest legacy might not be any single role or award. It's the lesson behind them. The reminder that laughter, empathy, and imperfection are the truest forms of immortality. In the years since his passing, countless interviews and tributes have revisited his genius. Co-stars describe him as unpredictable but endlessly kind. Directors recall how he would turn a single scripted line into an entire world of meaning. Friends remember how he always made time for others, even when he had none for himself. And his family continues his charitable work through the Windfall Foundation, supporting causes he cared about: children's hospitals, homelessness, mental health awareness. The same energy that once filled arenas now lives quietly in acts of kindness scattered around the world. Robin's daughter, Zelda Williams, once said, "My dad was the brightest light in any room, but light like that doesn't last forever. It burns so others can see." That might be the truest description of his legacy, a light that burned brilliantly, briefly, but left enough warmth to guide others long after. Quiet goodbye. Friends often say Robin Williams never knew how loved he truly was. He could fill theaters, move audiences to tears, and still doubt himself in the quiet afterward. That was the paradox of his genius, a man who gave love effortlessly yet struggled to believe he deserved it. In the years following his death, tributes poured in, not from publicists or institutions, but from ordinary people whose lives he had touched. Letters arrived from soldiers who said his movies kept them sane overseas, from patients who watched Patch Adams during chemo, from teachers who quoted Dead Poets Society to inspire their students. Every story carried the same thread: he made people feel less alone. That's why his absence still feels different from most. He wasn't just another celebrity, he was connection itself, the living proof that empathy could be entertaining. When his close friend Billy Crystal spoke at the Emmys, his voice cracked as he said, "He made us laugh. He made us care. He made us feel something." The audience stood in silence. For once, laughter had no place, only gratitude. Even now, nearly a decade later, people still revisit that bench in Boston, the house in San Francisco, the moments on film where he seemed to speak directly to the heart. They go not to mourn, but to remember. Because somehow, Robin Williams still feels present, not as a ghost, but as a voice echoing from every line he ever spoke. He once said, "You're only given a little spark of madness. You mustn't lose it." That spark, the wild, generous, human light, is what he left behind. In the end, his story is not one of tragedy, but of choice. He chose authenticity over artifice. He chose humanity over immortality. He chose to stop the world from turning him into something he was not. And maybe that's the final message he wanted us to hear, that being remembered isn't the same as being replicated, because the laughter he gave us wasn't a product, it was a gift. And some gifts, once given, are meant to stay untouched. Robin Williams reminded us that life's beauty lies in its impermanence, that the moments that make us laugh, cry, and connect are precious precisely because they end. He made the world lighter while he was here, and even in leaving, he gave one last lesson. That magic is real only when it's human. He made the world laugh. He made it think. And when the lights went out, he made one final request: let me stay real. What's your favorite Robin Williams memory? Share it. Keep it alive the way he intended, through stories, laughter, and the human spark that no technology can ever imitate. Robin Williams once said, "Everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Be kind, always." Maybe that was his real message all along, that laughter isn't the opposite of pain. It's what carries us through it. He gave us permission to laugh when life hurt, to cry when we needed to, and to find beauty in the chaos of being human. He wasn't flawless. He wasn't untouchable. He was us, restless, imperfect, brilliant, and trying every day to make sense of the noise. That's why his absence still echoes like an unfinished line. But maybe that's the point. Some stories are too human to ever truly end. And so, Robin's legacy isn't just in the characters he played or the jokes that still make us smile. It's in the quiet truth he left behind. That authenticity, love, and laughter are worth more than immortality. When we watch him today, as the genie, as Mrs. Doubtfire, as the teacher who whispered carpe diem, we aren't watching a ghost. We're watching a man who chose to stay real. If Robin ever made you laugh, if one of his movies helped you through a hard day, share this story. Like it, comment, pass it forward. Because somewhere out there, someone might need that same reminder. That laughter heals, kindness matters, and being human is enough. Keep his light alive, keep telling his story, and remember, the best way to honor Robin Williams is to make someone else smile today.